America Society online program called Sake Works. I'm Lizanne Gouin, Japan America Society President, and this is the Society's 30th anniversary of promoting Japan-US friendship and offering programs to encourage understanding and positive relationships. We're going to highlight sake tonight because it has historically been woven into many aspects of Japanese culture, from ceremonies that have traditionally formed the basis of society in Japan, including weddings, to business relationship protocols, to cuisine, and to entertainment. But work is also the theme tonight, particularly the Japanese production processes that have been carefully developed, repeated, and honed, and the adaptation of these traditional techniques to modern technology, always with the object of accomplishing the best result possible. This program is co-sponsored by Ikigai Connections, energetically linking Japanese specialists with business. And Kasha is here with us, and she's going to go ahead. Go ahead, Kasha.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us. I'm excited to be here as well, and I've been collaborating with the Japan America Society of Michigan and Southwestern Ontario with reaching out to our young professionals. So we've had some great events in the past, including things such as sushi making workshops that were one-on-one with professional sushi chefs, and holiday dinners in the famous Meadowbrook Hall, also known as the Dodge Family Mansion here in Michigan. So we realize that this pandemic has prevented a lot of in-person gatherings, but it's really nice to know that we can still connect with other participants from so many locations via these online events. So thank you for joining us. And if anybody's interested in helping us out and joining future events with young professionals, we are always looking for new participants, so feel free to reach out to us. And towards the end of this presentation, I will be adding all of our URLs for our special guest, for Japan America Society, and for Ikigai Connections, so you can easily click and use that to check more out about us. So real quick, I know that many of you know that I'm a huge fan of the concept of Ikigai, which what it means is an intersection of 4 circles for what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. And our special guest today is the absolute perfect example of somebody who is mixing their Ikigai with their career. And we will introduce him momentarily, but there's 2 words that you should know before we get started. And some of you may know these, but I'll introduce you anyways. The first one is takumi, aka artisan, Japanese craftsmanship. And this is where these professionals pass on skills from one generation to another, and they're known for precision, processes, etc. So you'll learn more about that. And it's also one of our special words. So if you see that, you can take a little sip of your beverage if you're interested. The second word, everybody I'm sure knows, is sake. And it is an alcoholic beverage made by fermenting rice that has been polished to remove the bran. So you will learn all about that in this with our special guest today. So with that said, let's learn a little bit more about Kato-san.
All right.
Okay, let me introduce our speaker now. We're very grateful to Shinobu Kato for his willingness to give us the sake maker's perspective on the Japanese national beverage. He brews sake in the takumi tradition of the time-honored Japanese master, or toji. He grew up in Tokyo, where after finishing school, he began his career working for Softbank, before coming to the US to be a student at the University of Maryland Business School. Kato-san then went to work for Nissan in Nashville. And now he runs his own brewery and retail store in Brooklyn, New York. Now, software engineering, car manufacturing, and sake brewing are all employed processes and systems developed over the long term. So his presentation will begin with the name, Sake Works, describing the components and the product of brewing sake. And then he's going to encourage us to drink along as he describes sake drinking etiquette. And last, he'll tell us about bringing the tradition to the US and what it's like for him to be in Brooklyn. Welcome, Kato-san.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Lizanne and Kasha, for the introduction. My name is Shinobu Kato, and I have to say this, takumi, so that I can drink. Shinobu Kato. I'm a founder and brewer of a small sake brewery in Brooklyn, New York called Kato Sake Works. And I'm excited to be here to talk about sake, which is my passion. So so today I want to talk about sake works. So the work, right? Here's a quick Japanese word about sake making. When we talk about sake making, we use the word kamosu in a verb form, or in a noun form, it's jozo. But you see the same kanji character, and this is quite a complicated kanji character, and I'm not going to test you later on. But the meaning of sake making, or kamosu, is loosely translated to the word to brew in English. So I call myself a brewer, or in my sake making space is as a sake brewery, but it's just nearly equal. So there's no good English translation. The meaning of this word kamosu is to ferment using koji. And I'll talk about koji later or in a short moment. But koji is a type of fungus or mold that does a lot of interesting magics to make sake or other Japanese staple or cuisine like miso, soy sauce, yuzu kosho, or widely known and used in the East Asia in general. So kamosu means to ferment something using this domesticated mold, koji. Well, because there's no English word for that, we usually use we are brewers. So sake is made of 4 key ingredients: rice or kome, water or mizu, and koji is the mold that I just explained, and yeast. And you know that any alcohol fermentation, we need yeast, right? And yeast eats sugar to make alcohol. So in sake's case, rice is a source of sugar. Rice has a sugar in the form of starch or carbohydrate, and that's broken down into a simple sugar, which then converted to alcohol by yeast. So that's a very big picture of how sake is made. So let's talk about rice. Rice is the most, probably the most important ingredient of sake making. Well, if you are in sake, probably you heard like rice polishing and all the semi-brewery and then those kind of things. And then that's probably the only thing that, you probably need to know about rice if, we only have like half an hour presentation. But if you take a brown rice, the brown rice at the sushi restaurant or wherever, that's we call 100% rice. So milling grade is actually not the milling grade, but it's called 100% rice. Typical white rice that you eat at the Asian restaurant is roughly 90% milled, which means 10% outer layers discarded. So that's bland, and then all other stuff that differentiate between brown rice and white rice. So that's 100% to 90%. When it comes to sake making, especially in the premium sake, we are talking about much further milling. So 70, 60, 50%. And some breweries goes much further. And right now I've heard that there's a brewery went to like 0. some percent. So that's kind of crazy. But rice milling is a big factor to differentiate between the premium grade sake versus mass-produced sake. And today's presentation, I'm talking about the sake, and then all the sake that I recommended is somewhere above the 70%, or below the 70% grade. So the more rice is milled, finer the final sake taste becomes, because outer layer has a lot of nutrients, which is good for your health when you eat, but not so good when it's fermented. And that's why we are talking about rice milling. Then we have koji. So koji is an interesting mold. It looks like a white fluffy mold that you find on French brie cheese, like white stuff. We grow that mold on the surface of the rice grain, and we culture that fungus on rice. And what this koji does, among all the great things that koji does, one key thing is to convert starch or to break down starch into sugars. So starch or the carbohydrate is a long chain of the simple sugars. Well, what koji does for its own survival is to produce enzymes to chop down those long chain of sugars into a small chain of sugars, right? So that's what koji does. And the koji is used for sake making, but also soy sauce, miso, yuzu kosho, or what else? Nowadays, some people making koji aged steak and something like that. But koji has a very potential to produce a lot of interesting enzymes. And then once koji makes sugar, then here comes yeast. Yeast eats sugar and make alcohol. Wine. Grape has a lot of sugar already, so it's easy for yeast to eat the grape and make wine. Beer, it's malt. That malt breaks down the starch in the barley and make a sugar and then make alcohol. In sake's case, yeast eats sugar made by koji and then makes alcohol. So it's like a tandem of koji and yeast to breaks down rice's starch into sugar, into alcohol. And then lastly, it's a water. So water put the perfect environment for rice to dissolve and then causes enzymes to work on the starch into sugar, and then yeast can eat the sugar into alcohol, right? Well, if you're big in sake, some people call about, hey, what's a water or quality of this specific region, and then that determines the quality of sake. That's like a terroir kind of discussion. Ultimately, it's a water's hardness that matters, and that's true for any fermentation. So, soft water, hard water thing. Well, the softer the water, there's less minerals dissolved in the water, and harder the water, more minerals, right? So to interpret that into the sake making or any alcohol fermentation, the minerals work as a nutrients to yeast fermentation. So more minerals, more robust and happy yeast. Less minerals or softer water, yeast struggle to ferment. And this is the numbers that I got from different, but to compare the water hardness in Michigan, in Japan, and then also New York. So New York City is known for very, very soft water, one of the softest in the United States. And it's very similar to Hiroshima's water in Japan, or Pilsen, known for Pilsner in Czech Republic. So softer water, fermentation is slow, and the final product is very soft, sweet, or delicate. If you go on the scale, you see Fushimi in Kyoto, this is one of the famous sake region in Japan, as well as Detroit and Ann Arbor in like around 100 scale. So that's like a medium soft water scale. And Fushimi Kyoto is known for a beautifully delicate sake quality because fermentation is relatively slower. So if any of you want to brew sake in the water from Detroit or Ann Arbor, your sake will be something like a Kyoto sake. Nada is another famous sake region in Japan and 180 ppm. So Nada was famous during the Edo era because of their very strong, robust sake, thanks to the harder water within Japan, of course. 180 is relatively hardest in Japan. And that gives the fermentation much more rigor. And that makes the Nada's sake more like a macho type of sake. In this scale, we have Munich, the beer mecca in Germany, and then that's 270, and then that is a reason that they can brew a lot of good beers there. And then now Michigan has Grand Rapids at 380 or something like that. So that's why Grand Rapids is a great place to go for beercation. And then actually I've been there for beercation once, and then I enjoy that very much. So those are the 4 key ingredients of sake. And then now let me talk about method, or more like a style of the sake. Well, one thing that I'd like to warn you is the classification or like a categorization of sake is a big mess. I'm a type A person, and then I'm very, organized as any Japanese person can be. But system of sake classification is like everywhere, and then that doesn't make sense at all to me. So it's hard for you to understand. It's hard for me to understand, and then don't be discouraged because it's already a mess. It's more like a hashtag system. So we can talk a lot of different things on the same, on the same pause. So like this is an example that I put. There's a type of sake that has an attribute like Junmai, Ginjo, Muroka, Namagenshin. Okay? And that's like a combination of 5 different words or 5 different styles, while each category talks about a completely different thing. So Junmai, we are talking about ingredients, while Ginjo is based on the fermentation style. Muroka is a different way of filtration, and the Nama is about pasteurization, and the Genshu is about dilution. So there's nothing mutually exclusive or nothing that you can put in a nice matrix or nice flow chart at all. It's like all the terminologies and then things everywhere. And then of course we can have a sake like Junmai Ginjo Nama, or we can have sake like Ginjo Genshu. It's everywhere. So that's why it's hard, because how you want to put those kind of mess into the menu at the sushi restaurant, right? If you start talking about, hey, this is a Junmai style, and then this is Ginjo style, what happened to like a Junmai Ginjo Muroka? So it's very hard to categorize things like beer or wine, but that's how we started doing 1,000 years ago, I guess. So sorry, but it's a mess, and you have to deal with that. That being said, today I'll only talk about 2 major styles, Junmai and then Ginjo. And I put a recommendation of today's tasting. One is a typical Junmai style sake, which is a suige or drunken whale's Junmai. And the other one is a Kubota Senju, like 1,000 years life or something like that. So that's a typical Ginjo style. And as long as you know those 2 styles, I think you cover like 90% of the premium sake. But I think this is a good segue for us to do a kanpai. I know you've been waiting for this moment, and then I've been waiting for this moment. So raise your glass and kanpai. So Junmai, has a rich, bold, and full body flavor versus ginjo has fruity, floral, crisp, somewhat delicate flavor. Those are like a typical flavor profiles. And let me explain Junmai first. So Junmai has two Japanese characters, while Mai is from the rice, while Jun means pure. So it means pure rice. And this is about ingredients. So it's a kind of crazy, but in sake making, we are allowed to add distilled alcohol or, like a grain alcohol or white liquor type of alcohol to sake, and they still call sake as sake. So it's more like a fortified sake, like fortified wine, fortified any alcoholic beverages. While Junmai, the classification of Junmai means there is no distilled alcohol added. So that's why it's pure sake made from rice, right? No other grains, no other distilled alcohol. So here we are talking about ingredients. And also there was some rice polishing requirement that rice needs to be polished at least 70%. But mainly the definition of Junmai is we are not adding distilled alcohol, or it's just pure rice-based fermented sake. Going to ginjo, it's about fermentation style. So ginjo, and the word jo is from the original kamosu or jozo. So how, to brew sake, right? Well, gin has a different meaning, but the secondary meaning of gin is to select, like carefully select. So ginjo means selectively brewed, right? So this sake style is selectively brewed, or like more like, masterly crafted or something like that. And then when we are saying this, we are talking about the more specific way of fermentation. So we put the rice and the water and the yeast and the koji into a cold temperature and make the fermentation much longer than usual sake making. And then that gives more fruity aromas like banana, melon, apple, green apple, something like that. And then also there's a rice polish requirement that rice needs to be polished at least 60% for ginjo. So, those two are like a major two premium sake styles. But as you see, Junmai is talking about one different thing, while ginjo is talking about the other thing, right? So those are not mutually exclusive. So you cannot say that, hey, is this sake ginjo or Junmai? Well, there's a type of sake called Junmai ginjo too, right? So just, it's all the sake classification is everywhere. But if you compare those typical Junmai sake and ginjo sake, and then if you have your preference, at least that's where you can start with. And then you can go much further. Different method, different paths, and something like that. I think ginjo are the good categories. How are we doing on the timing? Maybe we're good. So this is the last section, so I'll go quickly. I just want to talk about drinking a little bit. So you like izakaya. Now izakaya is everywhere in New York, and there's so many izakayas available. Well, izakaya is the Japanese word, two components, I and sakaya. And this is like a combination of the two words. Well, sakaya is a sake shop, and traditionally it referred to the sake brewery. Well, I is a word to stay. So, watashi wa imasu, I'm here. So to stay, to be type of word. So izakaya means a sakaya that you can stay. And that how it started, like during the Edo period, some of the sakaya or the liquor shop, sake shop, started to give customers like, hey, something more kind of set izakaya today, but the origin of izakaya is the sake shop to stay. If you've been to Japan in the past like 5 years, this is another newer style of the sake drinking place that's reviving these days, and it's called the kakuuchi. And kakuuchi is exactly what izakaya used to be. It's a sake store. They sell sake. So you see this on the shelves, there's a lot of sakes, and in the refrigerator, there's a lot of sakes. But they also have a counter, and you can drink sake by the glass on the spot. And sometimes they might have some canned snacks or like dried fish or something like that to eat. But mainly this is a sake store that, in addition, you can drink. And then that's called the kakuuchi. Kaku means corner or like angle or the point of a shade. And in this case, kaku is a corner of the wooden sake cup, masu. You know the wooden sake cup that people drink sake from? Oh, so you drink sake not from the flat in sake corner. So kaku, and then ud different meaning, but in this case, just to get or to take. So kaku is to drink sake from that corner. Not everywhere, this specific kakuuchi shop in Tokyo, but now Nihonshu, the sake is becoming a popular again, and then there's a lot of newer style of the sake shop that you can drink there. So if you have a chance to go to Japan after these things, stabilize, maybe you want to try going there, because that was the traditional or original version of izakaya. Quickly, drinking etiquette. I'm not an etiquette person, but because people ask me all the time, do's, don'ts, and maybe you can go ahead. So you say kanpai as many times as you want. Kanpai is a word that connects people, and people love to do kanpai, right? We overuse kanpai. Pour for others, yeah, it's always a good gesture to take care of your friends, and then or like a stranger in front of you, just pour for them. The other hand, some etiquette books says that, hey, don't pour for yourself, because that's a bad manner. That's more like, if you're drinking with me and if you pour yourself, I feel because I'm not taking care of you, so for me, for yourself, because there are more. So that kind of thing, while that does not necessarily mean a bad manner. And when I drink with my mom, I don't care, and she doesn't care anymore. So we just, pour our own sake for our own pace. So it's not like a bad manner. Hold the cup when you pour. So, that's a good gesture. And then drink chilled is, some sake meant to be drink warmed up or different temperature. But if you have no idea, always it's a good starting point to drink sake chill, because that's the way to get the most potential out from that specific sake. That being said, in the go-aheads, you can drink warm, hot, whatever temperature you enjoy. It's a personal choice. And although some people say that, hey, this sake needs to be drink at this temperature, that's your sake. And don't let people to dictate how you drink your sake, right? I like to drink some of the good ginjo sake at the nice warm temperature when we have a snowstorm in New York, right? And also the same is true with the drinking cups, that if you only have wine glass or if you have, pint glass, that's fine, right? Although, it's kind of fancy cups, but that small cups only hold a small amount of sake, and then I want to drink more, so I usually use bigger glass. Okay, there's not many don'ts because it's just a casual drink, but don't say sake. Okay, not sake, it's sake, and don't chug. Well, I, honestly, I sake up to age, and yes, so if you're a college student, that's fine. You should be chugging your sake. But if you're a college student or younger age, maybe you should not. And then don't bomb. Okay, sake bomb is not even my comprehension. All sound it looks kind of cool, but that's not the topic of sake webinar. So that's all, and this is just about who we are. So we are a small sake brewery in Brooklyn, New York, and our sake in a tiny apartment-sized brewery. And it's unfortunate that we cannot ship our sake to Michigan or Canada yet. But hopefully, in someday, either we can ship our sake to you, or we are in the different world that we can travel so that you can come over to our brewery. Our goal is to have a local sake enjoyed genuinely. So local for me is I'm from a small town called Koenji in Tokyo. So that's my local hometown. And then I've been in Brooklyn, and then I do a local business here. So I'd like people both in Tokyo and then Brooklyn to enjoy sake genuinely. Quick, but that's end of my presentation. Kanpai.
Thank you so much, Kato-san. I have my cup. Kanpai.